Welcome back to the Schmitter's 100 Acre Woods. So today we're working on getting some of these pines milled up that we got from the 100 acres. Basically they were just going to be stuff that was put over the edge whenever the power crew went through, so we were able to salvage some of that. So primarily we're making 2x4s and 2x6s, just with depending on how kind of the size works out whenever we get stuff milled down. Just tried to maximize what we could get out of it. Both of those are really convenient building material, and since that's what typically you buy at the big box store. Down to some of these smaller poles now. That one's pretty straight, this one not so much, that one's not too bad. A couple of these will cut down quite a bit, to like, I don't know, 6-8 feet, kind of see what we can get, so we can maximize what we get out of these. But starting to get most of that stuff cut up just down to the small pine pieces now. We want to get all the pine done so we can group all of that whenever we stack and sticker. So here, since these are pretty small, get a whole group of them here, and a lot of these we can actually just pick up by hand. So I get a pretty good group of these smaller pines, get them scooped up and just get them up there by the sawmill. And once they're up there, we can then work on cutting them down to size lengthwise and then getting them on the mill. So while we have the grapple, the forks seem to work a little bit better for the mill. Primarily, you can kind of get the forks up to the mill and then set stuff down on it. It works a little bit better, but then also the jaws on the grapple can sometimes get in the way if you're stacking stuff and just don't have quite as much room. So that's why we primarily use the forks kind of over here at the mill. You can see in that shot we have some of the sawdust bagged up, so again, been taking it to the 100 acres and adding it to locations where we've taken like all the topsoil away, just adding it to get organic back in. So here you can see just that log we were able to pick up and put on the mill, so that's why just got several of these picked up at once to get over here. So that last one, when we got these two 2x6s, it's just how it worked out, plus a kind of 1 and a little bit by 6, but some good looking pine. This one, 100% sure we haven't gotten it into a cant yet, still working on getting all the sides off, but see what we end up getting out of that. Really just depends on what we So a lot of these have kind of goofy ends on it because the power crew cut a big angle on it whenever they cut it down. So try to get the ends cleaned up the best we can before milling. And here I'm just indicating we're going to cut it somewhere in there just because there starts to be a little bit of a bow in it. So if you put the whole thing on the mill, you'd end up wasting quite a bit to try to compensate for that bow. Whereas if you go ahead and cut it there, you can kind of split the difference and end up with a lot more wood out of it. So here, just kind of fast forward, got this into a cant and starting to cut some 2x out of it. Looks like this will be some 2x6s. So I started running one, so just doing another cut there. And you can see I have a little bit of a chunky piece there at the bottom, so I just have to mark and do that cut. Another piece of pine on the mill here. On this we're using a 10-degree blade, and we're able to do all of this pine that we had with one blade. Seemed to work really well. And just ran a little extra pine saw and didn't really have any issues with anything getting too gummy. from the sap. So here, since we're trying to kind of get, you know,
roughly 6.5 to 7.
So I'm trying to get kind of exact numbers, or not exact, but trying to get, you know, roughly the same, like 2x6s, just kind of do the measure here on approximately what we get. And just using that laser, which has been pretty spot on. Obviously, the closer you are, you have the less of that vibration. A lot of these trees are actually small enough that the bark growth doesn't come over that far to run against the log. So a lot of the bark was already off these, but we did try to just kind of take one of the scrub brushes and clean off as much as we could so we didn't have the dirt or rocks getting into the blade. Okay, so we wrapped up milling up pine yesterday. Didn't get a whole lot of footage of it, just trying to get it cranked out, and it was raining yesterday. So it was nice able to work under the saw shack there and not get wet while it rained. But you can kind of see here, focused mainly on 2x6s and 2x4s. Our 6s kind of vary between 5.5 to 6, depending on kind of what we have for as far as the log went. So we kind of have some varied size, so whenever we go to use them, we'll rip them all the same or try to group these the same. And then have our 4s down there. So I think in total, we have 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So we have 25 2x6s. We have milled up there, and this is all pine. And then we have our 2x4s. I think there's 16, 17, 18 of those. And then we always have some 1x scrap just to kind of get stuff to the correct size. So we have some 1x material here as well. So in addition to the 1x pieces that we end up getting off, we end up with some small kind of scrappy pieces here that aren't very thick and can't be used for a whole lot, so they make perfect stickers. So I have a little portable table saw here that works really well for cutting this thin stuff. It doesn't really like cutting some of the bigger stuff that's wet, but it works really well for cutting that thin stuff. Keeps all the mess out here, definitely for this stuff that still has moisture in it, but can cut some stickers out of that. So get that fired up, get some of this stuff cut so we have stickers, and then start going through and sorting some of this out. So have some of our longer boards on the bottom, so I'll probably try to get those in first, and then obviously kind of go up from there. So I'll probably do 2x6s in one group and then do the 2x4s separate, just because they may not necessarily be used for the same projects. That way we can kind of separate those out and have individual bundles for when we need. So go through, create stickers, get some of that stuff bundled, and then use the binding thing here and get those bound together. Again, I think I mentioned in a previous video that the binding isn't necessary. I mean, I believe it does help for whenever it dries, kind of keep everything together and a little bit straighter. But the main thing is it allows us to have it on the forks and move it around and not worry about everything shifting and coming apart. So that's its biggest advantage by strapping all that together. Definitely right now we don't have a lot of extra places to store stuff, so a lot of it is kind of going in different spots just as we have room. So we're kind of having to move it around stuff or things like that. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we've been strapping along with. We believe it does help keep it all together and straight when it dries. These 3 pieces of pine here, so that's a piece of locust, we'll do it separately. These pieces of pine here. So just from what we've been doing, these pieces end up getting pretty small, and by the time you actually cut everything out around it to get a cant, you really just have like a 2x4 out of it, and not really worth our time to get that on the mill and get it all cut. Similar with this one here, and this one's a little bit more deceiving. Even though it looks bigger, there's kind of a hook at the end of it, so you'd have to take off even more. And that's really the thing with this one too. It's fair size on this side, gets pretty small down there, and again it kind of has a little bit of a bend to it, so by the time you actually mill off, and if you were to cut that to kind of get a straighter piece out of it, you're really only looking at about 4 feet. So at that long, it's not really worth it. 6 feet's kind of the minimum of what we've been cutting to get useful boards out of stuff. So that's what these pieces are here. Haven't decided if we'll firewood them or just kind of discard them. This was stuff again that was just going to be put into a green hole from the power crew going through and doing the clearing they needed to do. So it was just going to go in a green hole and be waste. But instead we're able to get all of those 2x6s and 2x4s out of it, along with some other sizes over there that we can use for various things. So nice to turn what was going to be waste into something usable. So to get all of this stuff stacked and stickered, really need to cut some more stickers because we're getting low. So get that little portable table saw out and run some stickers through, or run some thin boards through to make them stickers. Typically go about an inch wide, and then we have kind of varied thicknesses. Just try to kind of group those together whenever we stack. So of course the boards that I really want are there toward the bottom because they're the longer ones, but just try to get all these stacked together and typically put about 4 stickers across. Seems to be pretty decent spacing and doesn't allow it to bow. It works out for the 8 to 10 foot boards that we have. So we get all of our 2x6s stacked, and then on this pile we go ahead and put in some of the odd ones. We also have some pieces that need the bark cut off, so we go ahead and get the saw and go ahead and run those. These are 1x pieces that we did, but we go ahead and run them, get the bark off just by running the circular saw on it, and just try to get the maximum of what we can get when removing the bark. So just with a chalk line, can do a straight line, and circular saw has been doing a pretty good job even on this wet stuff cutting through. We used it for red oak and things like that is much, a lot harder on it, and it seems to do a pretty good job. This rear handle saw is really nice too, just with the way that you push through a board. It's much more natural than kind of the conventional one that's on top, where you kind of have a twisting action. Definitely whenever you don't have the depth set very far, where you're kind of up on top of the saw trying to hold it down. So that rear handle saw is really nice. And once we have everything stacked we want to get stacked in this pile, go ahead and band it together. Relatively cheap thing to help hold everything together and hopefully help it stay straight as it dries. Since we haven't been at this very long, I don't have a whole lot of comment on how effective it is, but the little bit of experience we have with it, it seems to be working fairly well. And like I said, it's pretty cheap, so if it's something we can do that will help that, then there's no sense not to do it. So here, start working on stacking our 2x4s. So we get these stacked up. We could do 4 across. Makes it about the same width as the other one. But can get this stacked together, get it strapped, and then found a spot where we could kind of store this. It's not exactly out of the weather, but it is an area that hopefully won't get too wet and can let this dry. So we go ahead and move this over here by the firewood shed. Just an area that is open that we can go ahead and store stuff. It's mainly undercover. So that's it for the pine. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.